Do you want to improve at a quicker pace? Check out getgoodracing.com, where I'm offering the most accessible coaching sessions on the market.
Now for the track guide. This is an amazing track. I just loved doing laps with Super Formula. Now for racing, I think it's gonna be a good track as well because of the drafting, because of the high-speed corners, so we'll see. But going into the track guide, for turn 1, you really want to put the power down as early as possible, and you really want to rotate the car early enough. So what I do for that is, using as a braking marker the 100-meter board, I want to brake slightly before it, so almost when the 100 is in front of us, I'm applying the brakes. In my mind, I'm braking slightly before it, but in this instance, it seems like I'm braking at the 100. You're gonna look at the 100 either way, because you want to brake late and hard initially, and you want to make the rear tires a bit looser under braking. So it's important to generate this rotation while going into the corner on the initial braking phase. The earlier you're gonna rotate the car under braking with the downshifts and the steering angle, the better it's gonna be for you to put the power down. And I found that using 5th gear is the way to go in this corner. 4th gear is tempting, but 5th gear is gonna be faster. I'm using the fixed setup, so for the fixed setup, I'm picking initially, I'm not picking to 100, even though I think you can pick to 100 without an issue. It's just that in this instance, I didn't brake hard enough. I think there's a little bit of time on the table under initial braking. So picking high initially, then dropping it quickly so I have some turn in, because when you brake hard initially and you do the downshift, you shift the weight and you make the rear looser. But if you're gonna maintain that brake pressure, that weight shifting is not gonna work as efficiently as it could. So picking hard initially, but then drop it quickly while turning, so we have some turn-in capability, because that's the issue. If you're gonna trail brake and hold the peak pressure too much while turning, you're gonna lock up the tires, and overall the platform of the car is not gonna be set towards oversteer. It's gonna be set towards understeer. So we want our car to be oversteery, a bit oversteery on entry, so it can rotate, and we do that with the brake release. So we release the brakes and we're gonna apex on this orange and red curve. We really want to use as much as we can, and the moment that we touch it and the suspension compresses, because this is a compression zone around here, we want to go back on power. So instantly going back on power, I'm using a lot of steering angle. My steering angle is almost like this at this point, so I'm asking a lot from the front tires in this moment, but then putting the power down and it's straight up. You don't want to modulate too much. You really want here, because it's a long straight, you want to be confident on power. So if you see yourself that you're building up like a staircase, or you're delaying it too much, you're having a gap in between the brake and the throttle, this is the worst place to have it. Like, you can have these small mistakes in other corners, but for big straights and corners that lead to big straights, the only thing you should focus on is the exit initially, and then you can try to brake later and gain time on entry as well, but the exit is going to be the most important. Now, in terms of using all the track here, the off-track limit is you going with this antenna at this point to the left of the gray curb from here. So if you're gonna put your antenna on it, it still won't be an off-track. Then bringing the car right immediately, and right now it's just a straight, so let's skip to the next corner. Next corner is not gonna be so easy. So what I'm looking at is this wall here. So I want to bring my car as close as I can to this wall. This is gonna be like the perfect point to have as a marker. You really want to bring it close so that you can open up the next one and be early on power. Now, in order to do this, of course, you have to have a turning point. Now, for me, this turning point is the 200. Let me go back just a bit. So as soon as I pass the 200, I'm turning the car, but I'm not braking nor am I lifting. I'm turning with 100% throttle, and afterwards I start to do the lift towards this corner and add just a bit of trail brake, but not immediately, because the common mistake is to, when you turn to brake or to release the throttle, but you won't carry that speed, you won't have the same levels of downforce if you're gonna do that. So for all the high-speed corners, especially with open wheels, the procedure is to first turn, then apply the brakes or the throttle release, but not at the turning point. So we're doing it afterwards. Now, adding just a bit of brake, I wasn't sure that I'm gonna position the car well enough. So in my opinion, this brake you can maybe not have it. You can have it to less extent, maybe brake even less. I didn't do too many laps here, so I think it was maybe the 6th lap or so, but I felt like the lap was quite strong for a track guide, just because of having the good lines and everything else. But of course, you will try here to brake less and less, to the point that this is gonna become almost a lift with the throttle maintenance and then get back on power, like right here. So you will try to reduce this distance. And you see here that I did some blimping on throttle, maybe do it earlier. So didn't experiment it too much, but it felt to me while doing it that it's possible. Now in terms of the line, after you get close enough to this wall, the car will almost jump. So you will feel the suspension jumping and the tires won't touch the ground for a brief moment. It won't touch the ground. So it's important when doing so to avoid having huge steering angle initially. So around here, if you're gonna turn too much around here, you will lose the car. So in your mind, you will try to go as straight as possible. You're still gonna do some steering angle. In my case, I had something like this. But if you will have too much when you're doing the jump, then whenever you're landing, you will lose grip. So it's super important here what you're doing with the steering angle. That's one thing. And the second thing is the timing of it, because you can do it afterwards quite well. Whenever the car lands, like right now, it landed. Let me go back, because like right now, you can't do whatever you want with the steering wheel. The car will comply. So I'm trying to use this curve as much as possible. And then when getting back on power, to use this one as well. So you're aiming for this red and orange curves. Basically, those curves are gonna be checkpoints while doing this corner. So first checkpoint is the wall and also the curb, getting as close as you can to the wall. The second checkpoint is cutting this curb to the grass, like almost touching the grass with the left tires. The next checkpoint is this curb, almost cutting the grass initially, so early apex, going over it. And the last checkpoint is this curb here on the exit. So you see, going all these curbs, be mindful though on the steering angle while you're having 100% throttle. Now for this long right-hander, what I do is, in 6th gear, I just try to treat it like a double apex, but not in a traditional way. So I'm apexing at this point initially, then I'm apexing around here, and then the car will go wide. But I don't try to go super wide, so to take like an U-shaped line. I'm taking more like a V-shaped line with these Formula cars, because you will have the downforce to make the car stick. So just a bit of brake here to make sure that the car points, then going back on throttle to the second apex and staying on throttle in 6th gear using all this track. And now for this corner, I use as a braking marker this exit road on the left side around here where my mouse is. At this point, I'm gonna apply the brakes and I'm gonna downshift to 5th. See, I'm not going to 4th, even though it's tempting. 5th gear is gonna gain you more speed. In the previous attempt I was using 4th, and you can see that I'm gaining on delta. And you really want to apex late, and you really want to touch this curb right here. You want to touch it and then build your way up with the throttle. Using all this on the exit, you can use even more than what I did. And for the next corner, I'm not looking at these markers as references. I just pay attention to the moment that I hit a small compression, because the road goes a bit downwards and then it starts going upwards. So at this point, whenever I feel the suspension loaded, I'm applying the brakes. I know that I have more grip than before, so I'm braking here. This is a good reference in my opinion to have. I use it with all the cars, no matter the car I'm trying to brake at this point. So picking quite hard initially. You can pick even more than what I did, I'm quite sure. And then trailing, it's a long trailing zone, and then going back on throttle. But here I have a mistake. So the mistake is that I have this plateau on throttle, and then basically I maintain it too much. Ideally, this shape is gonna look like going up all the time. So if you find yourself that you have to maintain it, it means that your apex was probably too early. That's the reason why I had to hold back, because I was afraid I will go too wide. Keep this in mind while you analyze your own laps. Try in this corner to have your throttle application almost like an on-off switch. Having it like an on-off switch is not gonna be 100% ideal. You will probably be under the limit if you're able to do it like on-off switch in this corner, but closely to that is gonna be the way to go. Now moving on to the next corner, I use as a reference for braking the last banner here, I think is the 100. At the 100 I'm applying the brakes, I brake quite hard, I'm picking 90 something, and immediately I want to be early on throttle, so I want to apex late in 4th gear, and at this curve I'm going back on throttle, so I make sure I'm pushing the car all the way to the grass. Now bringing back to the right side, and right now this is gonna be tricky because in this corner, because of the elevation change, because right now you're going in an uphill part, you will have less grip on the braking and also on the turn-in. So you have to know that your mechanical grip is gonna be affected, because otherwise you will easily spin or you will easily be under the limit. So what I like to do is I like to brake whenever I see this corner better, whenever I see this curve a little bit better, I'm applying the brakes, because right now you don't see it, right now you don't see it, right now you started to see it, and right now you see it a lot better. And whenever because I'm always looking at the apex, I think that whenever you're able to find some references which are super close to the apex, that corner is gonna be more consistent than looking on the right side, for example, in this corner, looking right and then turning left. That's not gonna be a good enough reference point. So I'm using this and I think that it's quite consistent. Now I'm not downshifting to 3rd, even though you are tempted to 3rd to get the rotation. I think 3rd is gonna be a bit slower on average. So 4th and then trailing. Whenever I'm hitting this curve, I'm building up the throttle. Notice this gap though. So for some reason I wasn't able to put the power down early enough, but I was able to build it up quite quickly. This was a mistake though. Ideally you won't have this gap, but it is what it is in this corner. Now going into the next corner, again I don't use any references for turning. This is gonna be a flat out corner. I just look into the apex and I try to apex as late as I can. I don't want to meet it early around here. I want to meet it almost in the middle, what it feels like in the middle, because if you're gonna apex way too early, you will go too far on the right side. And it's not an issue that you can't bring the car back to the left. This car has a lot of downforce and you will have enough time to bring it to the outer part of the left side. However, you will cover a longer distance by going left and then bring it all the way back to the right side. So if you can avoid it, why not? Then apex just a bit later. And now while taking this last corner, notice that you have this space in between the grass and the white line. So put your tires all the way to the left side to the grass, so you can gain every advantage that you can while going on entry. This is gonna be an important corner. It leads to a big straight, so preparing it as best as you can is gonna yield a lot of lap time, basically, going lap after lap like this. So positioning it all the way to this grass Now what I use as a reference for braking, it's again just looking at the corner, at the apex. I don't like here using a reference on the left side. That's not gonna be good enough. So you can maybe use this go bowling signs. I'm not using them though, but this is an idea, because you will still gonna look to the right side. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 banners. And at this point, after you point the car, you will see these 4 banners. The moment that you're gonna see just 2, it's gonna be a good moment to apply the brakes. But what I'm doing actually is I look at this corner and I'm also feeling the car and the steering angle, because let's go backwards a bit. At this point, the car is not straight. At this point, the car is straight. So starting from this point, we can have a reference for braking, because I already straightened up the wheel. I'm prepared to do the braking. Now, after that, my next checkpoint is seeing this corner. Whenever I can see it more clearly, let's say, I'm applying the brakes, and that's my only reference. I think it's gonna work super consistent once you find the sweet spot, because you're always gonna be the same. You will always expect the same size of this curve, because whenever you're more far back, it looks smaller, but when you get closer, it gets bigger. I'm just dabbing the brakes just to make the car point, and then trailing to this corner. Here we have a huge compression zone, and I'm putting the power down, and in 6th gear without a downshift, using all the track. And in short, that's a track guide for Watkins Glen's boot with the Super Formula. I wish you a great week ahead, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye bye.